down with cannon, she's got no torpedo tube, and promises no glory to attract the country rube. For her crew don't brag o' killin', nor the joys of bloody strife, for they're tendin' to their business, which is savin' human life. When the old storm signal's flyin', every vessel seeks a lee, except the cutter, which ups anchor and goes plowin' out to sea. When the hurricanes are blowin' from the banks to old Cape Cod, oh, the cutter with her searchlight seems the messenger o' God. And the men out on the ocean in a battered, leaky craft, when the sea ahead is mountains with a hell-blown gale abaft, when the engines quit, disabled, and she's lurching in the trough, them's the guys that greets the cutter with the smiles that won't come off. She's a saver, no destroyer, and the populace don't rave about the ship not built for killing, which is simply built to save. But the wives of men she's rescued, you can take it from me, Bo, those women bless the cutter, and the women mostly know. No, she's got no big 12 inches, and she doesn't sweep the sea. But the wind that scares the dreadnought to the cutter is a breeze. She goes thumping and a-bumping when the water is a hell-saving ship. Here's to you, cutter, for we like you mighty well. As the commerce on the high seas increased, many appalling disasters occurred in storm and fog on the rocks and treacherous shoals of our coast. To augment the humanitarian work of the cutters, a life-saving station on shore was established in 1841 and operated as a part of the Revenue Cutter Service. Gradually, additional stations were established until finally Congress in 1871 separated the land and sea activities for rescue work and established as a separate bureau under the Treasury Department the United States Life-Saving Service, with stations equipped for rescue of the shipwrecked from shore at exposed points along the coast. The Life-Saving Service soon won its supremacy over all kindred institutions of the world. By 1914, it had built up a record of 117,286 lives saved from the perils of the sea, and its achievements and successes in rescue of the shipwrecked had earned the praise of the whole civilized world. The long record of battles with the elements in the rescue work of the Coast Guard contains many tales of heroic attempts against insurmountable odds. These men knew the futility of their task, but were living up to the motto expressive of a tradition of the service: you have to go, but you don't have to come back. Fire is one of the most terrible types of marine disaster. This oil tanker, many miles at sea, has set out her SOS, and the ever-ready Coast Guard cutter is hurrying to her assistance. A power lifeboat also responds to the call from the nearest Coast Guard station. These boats reach the scene just in time to save the tanker's crew, but the ship is a total loss. Burning oil released by explosions finally covers the sea with a mass of raging fire. Because of the natural community of interest between the Revenue Cutter Service and the Life-Saving Service, Congress on January 28, 1915, combined the two services into one organization called the Coast Guard for closer coordination and greater efficiency. The Coast Guard was made a part of the military forces of the United States, operating under the Treasury Department in time of peace to enforce the customs, revenue, and other maritime laws, and to protect and save life and property, and as a part of the Navy in time of war or when the President shall so direct. The Coast Guard has made a distinguished record in every war in which the United States has engaged. Upon entry of the United States into the World War in 1917, 6 Coast Guard cutters were sent abroad to join the naval forces in the war zone and serve as ocean escorts for convoys of merchant ships. Coast Guard officers commanded other combatant vessels in the war zone, served on cruisers, gunboats, and transports, on aviation duty, in naval districts, and at training stations. The Coast Guard is divided into 4 main areas, with its national headquarters at Washington, D.C. Each area is under an area commander, with headquarters at New York, Cleveland, Mobile, and San Francisco. The areas are divided into divisions. Each division is in charge of a division commander with headquarters in the principal seaport of his division. The eastern area has 3 divisions: the Boston Division, the New York Division, which includes Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, and the Norfolk Division. The southern area has two divisions, the New Orleans Division and the Jacksonville Division. The northern area has two divisions, the Chicago Division and the Cleveland Division. The western area has two divisions, the Seattle Division, which includes Alaska, and the San Francisco Division, which includes the Hawaiian Islands. The Coast Guard stations, formerly called life-saving stations, are divided into 13 districts. Each district is in charge of a district commander. There are 277 Coast Guard stations located at selected points of danger along the sea and lake coast, including one at the falls of the Ohio River at Louisville, Kentucky. The Coast Guard depot is located at Curtis Bay, Maryland. Here, the special types of lifeboats and surf boats used in the service are constructed, and other items of equipment peculiar to the service are manufactured. The vessels of the service stationed on the Atlantic coast are at times overhauled and repaired. The Coast Main Aviation Service, with stations located at strategic points for cooperation with its vessels in law enforcement and the rendering of swift humanitarian aid. One of the newest of the 7 Coast Guard air stations is the beautifully equipped station at Miami, Florida, typical of the Coast Guard air units operating around the rim of the United States. Ever abreast of the times, and following the policy and traditions of almost a century and a half of efficient service as guardian of the coast, the first line of aid to navigation, and the primary agent for succor to those who go down to the sea in ships, the United States Coast Guard has developed an aviation branch of genuine importance to the nation and to humanity. In pursuance of their multiple duties, the Miami station operates seaplanes, amphibians, and land planes. From the moment you go aboard one of these seaplanes, you feel aboard ship. And the fact that by the grace of its own powerful engines and the laws of aerodynamics it takes to the air does not change the character of the service. Being a seagoing outfit, when the Coast Guard set out to build according to its own ideas a seaplane suited to its work, it literally built a flying boat, a ship that combines the best qualities of a transport plane with those of the sturdy surface craft, the lifeboat. These ships are not only capable, maneuverable airplanes, but are of remarkable seaworthiness. Briefly, these Coast Guard planes serve as an aerial eye, capable of swift and extended search, as an aerial ambulance, able to land in rough water, and as a high-speed flying patrol for law enforcement duty. Most of the planes are fitted with machine guns. Here's a fighting land plane, used in the suppression of smuggling along the Mexican border, the Florida coastline, and through the intricate channels of the Florida Everglades and the Louisiana marshes. In the old days, it was rather easy to slip contraband across the border or into the puzzling channels of the Everglades and marshes. But today, a single airplane can bring under swift observation 1,000 square miles, and smuggling is a difficult business. When smugglers take to the air, it's still tough. Imagine yourself a smuggler in this plane being followed by the Coast Guard pursuit plane. That fellow has a gun. And if you don't satisfy him as to who you are and won't listen to reason, he knows very well how to use it. Or suppose you weren't a smuggler, but an enemy during time of war. Here's a foe you hadn't counted on. A highly trained Coast Guard air service in time of war will undoubtedly become a material factor in national defense. This is the station at Cape May, New Jersey. The Cape May station is also furnished with large flying lifeboats of various types, equipped with powerful radio sending, receiving, and direction apparatus, and capable of extended flights out to sea or along the coast. An important function of the air service is the rendering of emergency aid to persons injured on ships at sea. The transport of emergency cases from ships at sea to hospitals ashore in the swift flying lifeboats of the Coast Guard has saved many an injured seaman's life. Accidents aboard vessels far out at sea often present grave problems. With no hospital or surgical facilities, like the modern luxurious passenger ships, these vessels have no way of meeting dangerous emergencies among their crews, such as serious cuts and burns, or sudden afflictions like acute appendicitis, which demand immediate operation. Aboard this tanker, a member of the crew has just been seriously scalded, and his life is in danger. The ship's wireless begins to vibrate with news of the man's plight. She asks for help. Far over on the American coast, a radio operator in the United States Coast Guard station intercepts the message. He takes it down, noting the exact location and course of the vessel needing help. This will be a job for the aviation department of the Coast Guard. There's no time to lose. A pilot is summoned. He takes the message and is off to make ready for the trip. Things are humming in a jiffy. A large Coast Guard seaplane is instantly sliding down the ramp into the water. Presently her motor sputters and begins a steady drone, and she is off on her errand of mercy. A beautiful sight to see, gratifying from an aesthetic standpoint, but how important from the practical side. Coast Guard seaplanes, in addition to their vital work of scouring the skies for modern air smugglers and the like, meet dozens of just such emergencies as this each year. They also are used to locate missing or disabled boats, derelicts, and to identify suspicious steamers. Not far off, the seaplane sights a merchant vessel. The pilot swoops low to identify her. He reads the name on her bow, makes sure she's not the ship he's seeking, and then speeds away on his emergency call. The radio direction finder guides him accurately to the tanker. And here she is. Only a short while ago, she sent out a call for aid, and already the call has been answered. A matter of minutes, where an emergency ship would have taken hours. The pilot checks her name, getting ready to land. There must be real joy and relief in the hearts of the captain and crew, not to mention the man whose life is at stake, as big metal birds settle down on the water. Already the lifeboat is swinging from the davits, the scalded victim aboard, ready to lower away and put out to the Coast Guard plane. In a few minutes, she'll be winging her swift way back to the station, where a doctor and ambulance will be waiting. All is secure, and the plane waits for the lifeboat to bring the victim aboard. The injured man, swathed in bandages, is transferred from the lifeboat to the plane. A simple feat in calm weather like this, but not so simple in an ugly sea. But Coast Guard planes meet such emergencies in all sorts of weather, and often it's a fierce battle as the sea struggles for what is traditionally hers. A critically injured man miles from shore. A matter of minutes, and the Coast Guard plane is off again in a swift race with death. Land ho! Just beyond lies the Cape May Coast Guard station. And once again, the motors of modern man are clicking to save a life. In no time at all, they arrive at Cape May, and in a few minutes, the victim will lie in a shore hospital. Coast Guardsmen rush to take him from the plane. He is lifted out while a doctor stands by to examine him. A brief inspection. Serious, says the doctor. He gives orders to rush the victim to the hospital. Into the ambulance and away to a sick bay out of reach of the sea, whose stubborn waters for centuries have held back ships plying for port with the sick and disabled. Another life saved, and another good mark for the name of the United States Coast Guard. The United States Coast Guard Academy at New London, Connecticut. Here are assembled by competitive examinations young Americans between the ages of 17 and 22 who were put through a rigorous 4-year training course to fit them for service as commissioned officers. These men are specially and technically trained to carry on the Coast Guard's work of enforcing customs and other maritime laws, assisting in national defense, and safeguarding life and property from the perils of the sea. This careful training is a far cry from the method used in the early Coast Guard, when officers were commissioned from among those who had served in the disbanded Continental Navy. Far cry, too, from the later and unsatisfactory method of choosing Coast Guard officers from among the Navy Academy overflow and the Merchant Marine, and a great improvement over the still later method of training the men exclusively on practice ships, a method rounded out in 1900 by the establishment of a school on land. In 1929, Congress provided funds for the modern building and grounds you see here, an institution adequate for the needs of the Coast Guard. The start of a new day. The bugler's call for breakfast changes his status from that of a big bad blower of reveille to that of a popular captain of come and get it. I'll bet they don't rush like that to classes. Breakfast formation. Inspection of dress and promptness come before food. In any activity of the cadets as a whole, they follow a disciplinary routine. The Academy provides the environment for instilling into the cadets the foundation upon which the morale of the service is built. The integrity of a commissioned officer of this service has never been questioned. And can these lads of 17 to 22 stow away the chow? Classes start at 8 o'clock. Here's the radio class, a vital part of any cadet's training in these ether-controlled times. In the span of a few short years, radio has revolutionized man's control of the sea. The cadets are taught to send and receive messages and are thoroughly grounded in the sciences and in all forms of communication. The direction finder, carried by all Coast Guard cutters and planes, enabling the officers to determine accurately the course to a vessel in distress or the location of a lurking smuggler.
Point Judith, 9-0.
Point Judith, 9-0.
The engineering laboratory. Here is taught the construction, operation, and maintenance of gasoline, diesel, electric, and steam-driven machinery, and the proper care of boilers so vital to steamship safety. The ordnance class, where the cadets learn to operate all types of armament used in modern warfare, and the enforcement of law on the sea, up to and including the 6-inch gun. At the close of this course, a cadet can break down and reassemble any ordnance piece used in the service. The cadets learn the workings of the fire control station, used in determining the proper range and deflection to be used on the sights of the gun. The Coast Guard being essentially a military arm of the national government, this knowledge is a vital part of the training. And it isn't only in time of war that the Coast Guard has need of its guns. In addition to these and other laboratory activities, the cadets are put through recitation and intensive classroom work, making for both practical and theoretical knowledge. Infantry drill. The Coast Guard is proud of its military training and stands in readiness at all times for war. It's the one military force that is forever active, working for country in time of war, for all humanity in time of peace. 4 hours of each week are designated for these drills, which include the rudiments of open order, artillery, ceremonies, and exercise under arms, and intensive practice in close order. Also, cadets receive classroom instructions in tactics, the rules and principles of military science. At the end of each school year, prizes are awarded to the best drilled companies as chosen by judges from other services. The cadets are required to participate in football and other sports. These sports have a twofold purpose: pleasure and the building of brawn for one of the world's toughest services. Each night study. It's not easy to absorb a working knowledge of the complex laws pertaining to maritime matters. The school year is divided into 2 academic terms and 1 sea term. Here the cadets are boarding a cutter for their 3-month summer practice cruise. Since a Coast Guard officer must be a thorough seaman, he is carefully taught practical navigation, seamanship, and marine engineering. First, a jaunt to Quantico, Virginia for small arms target practice. At Quantico, the cadet is thoroughly trained in the care and operation of rifle, pistol, submachine, and machine gun. He is required to become proficient in the use of all these arms. On numerous occasions, the Coast Guard has been called upon to place landing forces ashore for the protection of life and property. Each cutter maintains a well-drilled force, capable of landing on short notice and of operating as an independent unit ashore. Cadets are called upon for duties on the bridge or below deck. Here a class is receiving practical instruction in the engine room and in the fire room. Each cruise carries its deadbeat. No work, no study for these fellows, not even monkey drill. Returning to the United States, the cadets engage in battle maneuvers off the shore, putting into actual practice against floating targets their ordnance and gunnery training. There's a hit right through and into the sea beyond. They now have a chance to display their knowledge of the fire control station against an actual target. All the guns are brought into service. The cadets demonstrate their proficiency by firing the 3-inch gun in record time. The 5-inch gun is next in order of service. The trainer and the pointer. The cadets prove their skill. Somebody is good. Here are 3 hits. And somebody is better. Here are 4, 2 almost in the same place. But foreign cruise and battle practice is over, and the cadets come home to the academy all set to take advantage of 3 weeks' leave. A last formation, a final order, and the wanderers in no uncertain manner prove they're glad to be home. But they'll be back again in 21 days, ready for a brand new year. After 4 years of work and study, the cadet is graduated and set out into the service. Prizes are awarded to the best all-around cadets and to outstanding cadets in the various subjects. After receiving his diploma, each graduating cadet is commissioned as an ensign in the Coast Guard by the Assistant Secretary of the United States Treasury. A final song, Goodbye Academy, O Coast Guard forever. group of junior officers go out to take their places in the arduous, demanding duties of the ever-working Coast Guard. It has become almost a truism that when other storm-lashed ships race for harbor, the Coast Guard puts to sea. For when the weather acts up, that's the time the service is needed most. Hundreds of ships, thousands of lives each year owe their existence to prompt action of the Coast Guard. And they must be always ready for their unceasing vigilance as a law-enforcing agent. In fair weather or foul, the patrolling cutters are ever alert. Expert in coastwise navigation and deep-sea sailoring, the Coast Guard comprises one of the most vitally important forces in man's control of the sea. The barge office in New York Harbor, one of the 12 principal ports where Coast Guard officers work as captains of the port to enforce federal regulations pertaining to customs, neutrality, and laws governing the movement and anchorage of vessels. Federal officials board a Coast Guard tug that will take them out to a vessel arriving from Europe. Transporting these federal men is a daily work of the Coast Guard, but it is not the only work by any means. The Harbor Patrol tells vessels where to anchor and how long to stay. They police the harbor and regulate traffic, and they operate constantly against smugglers and meet 100 other problems arising from international travel. During the Prohibition era, they tussled with some of the world's most desperate characters in their ugly job against smuggling. Up the ladder and aboard to see what Europe has sent us this time. It's all in a day. Here we see the Coast Guard in the role of marine traffic cops. One of their significant legal duties is to enforce the law and order during regattas and marine parades. It's no small job. At this college crew race, they're patrolling the river, keeping observation craft in order, and standing by in case of accident among the racers. Yacht races present grave problems. A sudden squall may arise and turn sport into tragedy. But ever present are the radio-equipped Coast Guard cutters and patrol boats, which are on deck at once in case of trouble. The fleet's in, and so's the Coast Guard. Here's the cutter Tampa in charge of the Coast Guard patrol of a fleet review in New York Harbor. And here a patrol boat officer is ordering some of the hundreds of spectator craft out of the line of parade. The mad scramble to see the ships presents problems of traffic that must be solved. With federal police power, the Coast Guard serve as faithful, diligent watchmen whenever Uncle Sam's Navy is on parade. The Coast Guard enforces international laws and conventions relative to fisheries on the high seas. The cutter officers board these vessels to see that they comply with the navigation and inspection laws as well as all other laws. Here the boarding boat found an injured fisherman, and he will be taken to the sick bay of the cutter that lies close by. Swift treatment in this fully equipped floating hospital makes him a sound man again and prevents possible permanent disablement. Many deep-sea fishermen owe their lives to the prompt medical and surgical aid of the Coast Guard patrol. Thanks to this service, deep-sea fishing today is safer than history has ever known it. Among the constant cares of the Coast Guard are the motorless, cargo-laden barges towed by tugs from port to port along routes far out at sea. Here a cutter captain receives a wireless. A tug is disabled and floundering helplessly with a barge in tow. The captain plots his course to the disabled vessel. Thankful for a calm sea with small wind, he gives orders for full speed ahead. Visibility is good, and the cutter speeds to the scene. A sudden storm might sink the crippled tug and barges before assistance could arrive. The direction finder guides them accurately as the cutter bears toward her goal, wasting not a minute, losing not a foot by deviation. Strong, trained hands. To the Coast Guard, saving tugs and barges is nothing new. High in the crow's nest, the lookout sights the goal and gives the signal. Clear the quarterdeck. The crew makes ready to tow the cripple, clearing away all gear, standing by for orders. The gangplank must be removed. All must be in readiness for the operations that are to follow. A section of the rail must be taken away. Every detail is calculated accurately, for soon lines will fly along with orders, and another rescue will go down in the logbook. A strong hawser is made ready to tow the cripple into port. Just ahead lies the tug wallowing in a groundswell with a disabled engine, powerless to proceed with the helpless barge, and thankful for the Coast Guard. From the stern of the cutter, the shoulder line throwing gun shoots a line to the deck of the tug. Starting with a small hawser, the size of the line is gradually increased until the heavy towing hawser is hauled aboard. Finally, all is secure. The tug and its barge are taken in tow, and the trip into port is begun. It's all in a day for the Coast Guardsmen, whose regular duty but special delight is aiding the disabled, and thus spoiling the vicious appetite of that old devil sea. But it's not always so easy. Here a terrific storm batters the coast and endangers shipping. 2 barges are broken loose from a tug. A Coast Guard cutter has fought its way to the scene and stands alongside to remove the barge captain and his wife and to take the barges in tow. It's no simple task. Mad seas lash the barges and threaten the lives of any who dare come to the rescue. Meanwhile, a Coast Guard power lifeboat starts out from shore to aid in the rescue. Plowing desperately through steep moving mountains, drenched and bruised, the guardsmen fight their way out to the barge. And once alongside, it's no cinch to keep them from being smashed against the bulk of the helpless craft. But 2 lives must be saved. And that's one of the things the Coast Guard is for. And saved they are. The barge captain and his wife are taken aboard the motor lifeboat, and the desperate trip to the shore has begun. A vivid example of the 5,000-odd lives saved each year by the United States Coast Guard. Heroism? Not at all, say the guardsmen. It's all in the line of duty. Sometimes the sea doesn't wait for its victims, but comes screaming ashore to seek them, smashing coast cities in the form of hurricanes, and leaving a wake of destruction and desolation. In such cases, the Coast Guard is promptly on the scene, lending emergency and police aid, doing work similar to and often in cooperation with the Red Cross. And even when the sea is not involved at all, and the earth itself decides to shake down buildings and crush out human life, the Coast Guard stands by to protect its victims. During the California earthquakes, the Coast Guard cooperated with other agencies in emergency relief work and police duty. Often the Coast Guard even goes inland to render humanitarian service. During the great Mississippi River floods in the spring of 1927, the Father of Waters came raging down the valley, smashing the levees, sweeping away hundreds of homes, leaving thousands shelterless, foodless, stripped of all belongings except what they wore. Into this flooded field of misery came the Coast Guard, with 674 officers and men, and 128 vessels and boats. A large number of surf boats were rushed by a special train from the Atlantic and Lake coast, and the Coast Guard removed from positions of peril to places of safety over 43,000 persons. In addition to human rescue, the Coast Guard also saved over 11,000 head of livestock, which otherwise would have drowned. So even Old Man River, whose stormy moods are famous in song and story, now has to contend with a new force whenever he goes on a rampage, the United States Coast Guard. A picturesque winter activity of the Coast Guard is the ice-breaking duty. Frozen rivers, lakes, and harbors paralyze shipping and cause floods, but specially built icebreakers keep the channels open. The Kickapoo's spoon bow enables the ship to slide up over the ice, and the weight of the craft then crushes the frozen area. Here's the cutter Northland, breaking through the frozen Columbia River to aid ice-locked ships. As many as 30 ships a month during the winter are freed from the grip of heavy ice by the Coast Guard. Out to sea on our regular patrol, a derelict has been reported, and it's our job to get rid of it. The lookout has sighted the wreck. Derelict 1 point off starboard bow, sir. A final checkup, and here we are. An abandoned submerged vessel, a real menace to ships in fog and heavy seas. Removing derelicts from the paths of navigation is a vitally important work of the Coast Guard. A boat stands out toward the lonesome leftover of the sea. Are they going out to salvage the old wreck and pull her into some snug harbor at last? They are not. They are going to place a mine under her and blow her into oblivion. And this isn't child's play. It takes real courage to lower a TNT mine underneath the waterlogged hulk and then work the small boat off to a safe distance. But there she goes, and ships have one less danger to fear. Here's a cutter rushing to answer a distress call. A freighter is disabled. Her engines are broken down, and she has sent a wireless call for help. A Coast Guard cutter on her regular patrol receives the message and rushes full speed to the scene. The value of property assisted and salvaged by this service each year equals a sum twice the cost of maintenance of the entire Coast Guard. This freighter carries valuable cargo that might be lost forever without the prompt aid of the cutter. On an average over a period of 5 years, the Coast Guard saved 15 lives a day and assisted each month 400 vessels, valued at $12 million. Important? Just ask the men on that freighter. At Fort Trumbull in Connecticut, the Coast Guard maintains a training school for enlisted men. Here, the men without prior service are sent for a period of training before assignment to regular duty. And here also the enlisted men take up specialized studies. This is the seamanship class, vital in the training of any seaman, learning to tie knots and handle lines. Here's a bowline. Here's one of the first they learn, the figure of 8 knot. Then it gets more complicated. Could you do this one, the reef or square knot? Signal drill, another class vital in the primary schooling of the enlisted man. These flags can talk like human beings, and their language is spoken constantly aboard the Coast Guard craft. And the ever-vital radio instruction. Regulations require that the men qualify along certain lines before they become eligible for specialized training in the various service schools. Fort Trumbull is thoroughly equipped for special training in all lines. Its radio school affords an extensive course of instruction, for the radio is a most vital and necessary part of the equipment of all airplanes, cutters, and other craft of the service for quick communication in the enforcement of law or the rescue of those in distress. Learning the language of the air is a thorough and important study. Since the Coast Guard must at all times be ready for the call of war, its personnel is trained thoroughly in the use of small arms. At Cape May, New Jersey, the enlisted men also are put through small arms target practice. And it's not just a matter of waiting for war either, for these men have to know how to handle smugglers or others encroaching upon the laws enforced constantly by the Coast Guard. And these lawbreakers usually will take nothing but forceful handling. And in the night patrol of the beach, a pistol is frequently a friend indeed. Cutter drills keep the enlisted men constantly on their toes. Here's the man overboard drill. An officer hurls a life preserver into the sea, and the call rings out, man overboard. A boat is instantly manned, and all is set for the imaginary rescue. It's as exciting as though a man were really overboard. Regulations require the men upon entering the boat to don their life jackets. No unnecessary chances are ever taken. Lower away, and down they go, working as fast as humanly possible. They'll have that drowning life preserver in no time at all. The cutter's engines, in reverse, churn the sea into a white foam as she stands by for the rescue. They pull away from the cutter post-haste to begin their search for the victim. Steady, old life preserver, we're coming. And there he is at the mercy of the sea. This life preserver never learned to swim. Quick, Watson, the hook. And another life is saved. But seriously, this is no game, but an extremely important part of the training and rescue work at sea. The crew is also drilled in the restoration of the apparently drowned, using the Coast Guard's own special system, which is the most efficacious ever devised for the purpose. Practical signal drills keep the men fluent in the language of the flag. All craft are constantly kept spick and span. This part of his adventures the sailor never boasts about. Here's the favorite spot on any man's ship. The galley sends out its assorted aromas all day, causing the men to work a little harder and faster to make room for the chow. And when it's ready, so are they. Through the mess room door pass the most beautiful appetites in all the world. The Open Deck Barbershop Incorporated. Your next sailor. Swimming is something in which the Coast Guard boys must excel. For many a rescue has to be made in seas that test the skill and endurance of the most hardy. A few hours of leisure and now to settle down with a good book. Oh, yeah? Hey, what's the idea? Yes, the Coast Guard even has its practical jokers. It's the original human disease. This fellow should have taken his book along with him. Each cutter has its gym, and its ambitious boxers keep the old haymakers in shape. And now, ladies, meet the Coast Guard's walking movie, a skin you love to read. When this man is home, his wife takes all the pictures off the wall. You don't need pictures on the wall when your husband's a walking art gallery. In its warfare against smuggling, the Coast Guard is constantly occupied with building swifter patrol boats, like this 78-footer, to chase the lawbreaker, thus keeping out smuggled goods and saving the government vast sums in revenue. This picket boat, capable of great speed, is used in chasing the small boats that contact smuggling ships at sea. Beside the patrol boats and the regular cutter, the Coast Guard has also developed a 165-foot diesel-propelled patrol boat, such as the one shown here, which is ideally suited for the offshore duties in picketing and pursuing lawbreakers. Here's the fastest speedboat in the service. Converted from the captured rum runner, what's this? Bad news for any smuggler. And here a cutter is picketing a smuggler at sea outside the legal zone. Such picketing has proved successful in preventing the landing of contraband. Rum runners and the like are carefully watched until shortage of food and fuel force them back to their home port. Effective and expensive for the rummy. Taxes mean revenue. Evasion of taxes means huge profits to the smuggler. Hence the necessity for constant Coast Guard patrol. Sometimes the smugglers are successful in making contact with their small shore boats. These fast carriers of contraband, such as the one shown here, are the latest in marine engineering and must be surpassed in speed by the Coast Guard with swift boats like this one. If the rummy refuses to stop, a Coast Guard one-pounder is brought into action, but only as a last resort. Business is business, and with the Coast Guard, the business at hand is the prevention of smuggling. If the rum runner decides to surrender, the Coast Guard officers board her, replace the crew with one of their own, and convoy her to port. No, sir, the smuggling racket isn't easy. It's ocean enemy number one, and the determined Coast Guard has put it on the spot. And now we're bound northward on one of the most interesting of all the duties of the Coast Guard, the SEAL Patrol. Every spring, fur-bearing seals, tens of thousands strong, migrate from somewhere south of the equator up through the Pacific Ocean to the Pribilof Islands in the mid-portion of the Bering Sea. Here we are at the islands, literally swarming with seals, which have navigated thousands of miles of the great Pacific Ocean to reach their breeding grounds. As they passed along the coast of the state of Washington, Coast Guard cutters took up the patrol, guarding them from molestation until they arrived here at their summer home. The Coast Guard stands by throughout the breeding season to protect the seals from ruthless poachers, who in former years nearly exterminated these valuable fur-bearing animals. The decimated herds before Uncle Sam placed a protectorate over them have increased until now there are over 1 million seals who migrate each year to the Pribilof Islands as a result of the international treaty enforced by the Coast Guard. One of the major duties of the Coast Guard is to patrol the busy steamer lanes of the North Atlantic and warn all vessels of icebergs and ice fields. In this work, the Coast Guard conducts the International Ice Patrol, which was formed at a convention of nations in London following the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. At this convention, the United States agreed to patrol the North Atlantic steamer lanes each spring. To disprove the belief of many that icebergs can be broken up, the guardsmen take a few futile cracks at the white peaks. 3/4 of any iceberg is underwater, and there lies the real menace to ships. So breaking off the top does nothing to remove the danger. As many as 38 vessels have been guided clear of icebergs in a single day, and during a single month, as many as 376 icebergs have been sighted within the paths of navigation. The Titanic, crashing into a great iceberg on her maiden voyage, plunged over 1,100 passengers to death. But since that day, many years ago, when the Coast Guard took over this patrol, not a single life has been lost as a result of collision with icebergs or ice fields in the North Atlantic. On a gloomy September morning, the world was shocked by news of one of the worst marine disasters in history, the burning of the Morro Castle. Newspaper men jumped from their beds and raced to the scene of horror, where scores of hapless luxury liner passengers had been burned to death. So absorbed were they in ferreting out the details and causes of the gigantic tragedy that they all but overlooked the tremendous part played in rescue work by the Coast Guard. The cutter Tampa rushes to the scene to assist in one of the most horrible and demanding jobs of rescue she's ever been called upon to face. And here she is standing by. Here's a 75-foot patrol boat fighting heavy seas to reach the blazing death ship. Dozens of Coast Guard craft from Cape May to Sandy Hook, a stretch of 80 miles, are out in full force. Trucks rush the lifeboats along the beach to points nearest the Morro Castle. And here the boats are launched through the ugly surf. 2 lifeboats from the Shark River Coast Guard Station were first on the scene. 164 survivors owe their lives to the Coast Guard. They pulled from the water 110 of the 157 persons taken to New York by the merchant vessel. During the day, 54 more were rescued, and the bodies of 25 unfortunates recovered. Scores had jumped from this raging hulk, some never to live again, others to be plucked from the jaws of death by the tireless, desperate toil of the Coast Guard crew. Along the shore, Coast Guard boats battled the surf, looking for survivors who had had the strength to swim for it. The cutter Tampa, like a white angel of mercy, stands by to tow the blazing ship and to take off the living of her crew. Some of the victims succeed in swimming ashore and are pulled from the surf. 15 survivors owe their lives to the Coast Guard Beach Patrol. Another victim, burned, exhausted, half drowned, reaches shore and is helped to the beach by the Coast Guard. Many became unconscious a short distance from shore and would have drowned, but for the swift efforts of these alert crews. Prompt work of resuscitation by the Beach Patrol saved many lives. The Tampa takes the Morro Castle in tow, but not for long. She breaks the hawser and flounders toward the beach. And here she is, beached at Asbury Park, her fires still smoldering, her twisted steel a mute testimony of one of the great sea tragedies of modern times. Along these decks raged an inferno that sent many overboard into the pitiless sea, a sea that was staging its own rough show, adding to the horror, making rescue work difficult. Small wonder, then, that one half-drowned victim, snatched from oblivion by a lifeboat crew, gasped over and over in his hysteria, "Thank God for the Coast Guard." There's no seagoing or coastal force anywhere that has duties more arduous or that requires a higher degree of real seamanship than the duties performed by the Coast Guard. His twofold mission to serve humanity in time of peace and his country in time of war. His motto, Semper Paratus, always ready. Today there stretches around the extensive coastline of the United States a system of Coast Guard stations manned by a force superbly trained to the caprices and tricks of the surf and to the infinite might and mood of the deep sea, and of unchallenged expertness in the handling of small boats in the broken waters of beaches, bars, and shoals. They are also capable of taking their power lifeboats to sea on long journeys of rescue. Oh, boy, and can she take it. She can and does in all kinds of weather. That's the life of the Coast Guard. The sea and lake coasts of the United States, exclusive of Alaska, have an extent of more than 10,000 miles. And along these coasts, there are 277 active Coast Guard stations. In the northern part of the Boston Division, stations are rather far apart, since shipping traffic isn't heavy, and since there are numerous harbors of refuge. Near Boston, stations are more frequent, for they must protect the heavy sea traffic in and out of the principal port of New England. Cape Cod stretches directly out into the ocean some 40 miles, then abruptly turns to the north for an equal distance, and like a threatening arm, fiercely menaces the commerce in this important area. Here there are 13 stations placed close together and arranged to cooperate well with each other. The shifting sandbars that fringe this coast have become the burial ground of unnumbered craft. Block Island stands like a lonely sentinel to resist the thrust of the ocean, and in so doing it jeopardizes the heavy traffic plowing for port in storm and fog. Lighthouses are among the sailors' oldest friends, dating back to the beginning of man's conquest of the sea. They lift their beams in eternal warning, but often the fog is too thick, a storm is too fierce, or the sea too strong, and vessels are tossed on these menacing shoals and left to the mercy of the surf. It's then up to the Coast Guard to rescue the men and salvage the cargo, always a dangerous and trying job, a true test of the years of training and discipline these Coast Guardsmen have had. That the two stations on this island are sorely needed is evidenced by the wrecks that fringe its dangerous shores. All the crews of these vessels were rescued by the prompt action and skillful work of these stations. A highway runs past one of the stations on which the Coast Guard can speed its lifeboats to points nearest to wrecked vessels. The second station stands in an isolated section at one of the most dangerous points from where it can effect a rescue promptly from shore by beach apparatus or quickly launch its lifeboats into the sea. The ocean shores of Long Island and New Jersey are exposed to all the southeasterly and easterly storms which severely menace the heavy traffic in and out of the great harbors of New York, Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore. Along these shores, therefore, the number of stations is increased. The coastline throughout nearly the whole extent of Long Island consists of a narrow strip of sandy islands. This strip is unbroken except by shallow inlets connecting the ocean with the inland waters and by the entrance to New York Harbor. Outlying sandbars menace the traffic skirting this beach. The Jersey coast is similar to that of Long Island. Jersey's treacherous sands are literally strewn with the half-buried and decaying skeletons of wrecked vessels. But in addition to the work of protecting the heavy commerce that skirts these sandy beaches in and out of the great eastern harbors, the Coast Guard may be called upon to meet any emergency arising in the many resort towns that are crowded with pleasure-seeking masses during the summer. Here's a typical resort where thousands come during the summer months to escape the heat of the city and to play in the surf. From out of great cities like New York and Philadelphia, the people stream to the beaches, forming masses of carefree humanity along the waters of the coast. Often more than 1 million people are gathered in one small area like this. And in such a crowd, anything might happen. If anything does, in addition to the lifeguards employed by these resorts, there's a Coast Guard station nearby to assist in meeting the emergency. The Coast Guard is also called upon to meet any emergency arising among the hundreds of small pleasure craft congesting the bays and inlets and open seas of this region. To take care of this busy area, the Coast Guard maintains more than 60 stations on Long Island and the Jersey coast. Here's a station typical of the ones that fringe these sandy shores. This particular station is equipped with surf boats, which can be launched directly into the sea through the surf in almost any kind of weather. Their motive power lies in oars pulled by strong, trained arms, unlike the power lifeboats, which must be launched down runways into the relatively calm waters of bays and inlets like this one, whose channels lead to the sea. The Fire Island station is located on this inlet. Here's the station itself, with its boathouse and runway. Down this runway, the power lifeboat may be quickly launched into the calm water of the inlet. Down she goes, into the smooth water. She has to contend with no surf, as does her sister, the surf boat, but follows the inland channel without hindrance until she comes out of the inlet and onto the open sea. And here's the route she will follow. The Coast Guard maintains these inlet stations at strategic points from which they can safely launch power lifeboats and speed out to the rescue of distressed vessels too far offshore to be quickly reached by hand-powered surf boats. In the Norfolk Division, the same general conditions and type of coast exist as along New Jersey and Long Island. The same long, narrow islands with inland water. Here also stations are placed at frequent intervals in order to properly protect the important commerce of Baltimore, Norfolk, and Newport News, and the active coastwise shipping that is menaced by Cape Hatteras, perhaps the most dangerous and stormy point along the whole Atlantic seaboard. The sands of this region have always levied a fearful tribute upon passing commerce, strewing the coastline with battered vessels that never again will put to sea. In the Jacksonville Division, there is but one fully equipped Coast Guard station, and that's near Charleston, South Carolina. The westerly trend of the coast from Cape Hatteras to Florida takes it far away from the track of the vessels not calling at local ports. The climate is almost perennial summer. Consequently, shipwrecks are less frequent. The east coast of Florida has several Coast Guard houses of refuge, which serve the purpose of relief stations. In the New Orleans Division, which covers the Gulf Coast, the dangerous gales of the northern, which blow vessels away from the shore and out into the Gulf. This stretch of the coast is periodically visited by the most violent hurricanes and floods, which fall heavily upon the station forces in saving life and property and in furnishing food and temporary abode for the stricken populace. there are 9 stations in this division. The Pacific coast is generally a bold one, with few outlying reefs and shoals. As far north as San Francisco, the climate is bland and shipwrecks are rare. But the northern section contains few harbors, and there are a number of dangerous bars, some of them near the entrance to the important port. 21 Coast Guard stations protect this area. The great inland seas, known as the Great Lakes, are usually tranquil, but at certain seasons, violent gales arise which throw their waters into furious convulsions with a suddenness not known on the ocean. Therefore, 60-odd Coast Guard stations are needed to safeguard this area. There is also a special type of station at the Great Falls of the Ohio at Louisville, Kentucky. Jones Beach, one of the long, narrow islands that skirt the Long Island seacoast, is one of the greatest and finest public playgrounds in all the world. It is reached by the magnificent new highways of the great Long Island State Park system. Here, millions of people congregate for rest, recreation during the summer months. The waters off the shores of Jones Beach are crowded with pleasure craft, many of which are manned by inexperienced boatmen who get into serious trouble when overtaken by bad weather. While off the coast, steamers from all the world skirt the treacherous sandbars and routes to New York and other great harbors. Naturally, in such a beehive of shore activity, there would be a Coast Guard station. And what a station! Built of brick and stone to conform with the park rules, it is well manned and equipped with infinite gear for the saving of life and property and the enforcement of the law, a responsibility of greatest importance in a section of this character. When called out to sea, a tractor takes the lifeboats out of the boathouse and through the deep sand down to the beach, where they can be launched in a hurry. When a call comes from a point far down the beach, high-powered trucks are hitched to the trailers carrying the boats, and they're whisked away to the highway. Carrying crew and all necessary gear, the truck speeds along the excellent road to the point nearest the scene of trouble. This highway borders the surf all along this beach, making it possible to quickly reach any desired point. Extra large tires make it possible for the truck to easily speed over the soft sand right down to the water's edge. Hello, and where are you going, my pretty maid? If this yacht could talk, she'd probably say, mind your own business. An embarrassing position for a lady. Not long ago, she was hurled suddenly on these sands by a moody and impolite sea. Now, she's a lady in distress. And what has that to do with the Coast Guard? Well, that's a Coast Guard tractor, and these are Coast Guard men. The Coast Guard stands ready at all times to cooperate with commercial towing concerns in salvaging vessels like this. The Coast Guard doesn't compete with the commercial concerns, but will place its equipment and crews at their disposal, free of charge, if its services are needed. And they were in this case because storm warnings had been hoisted and the storm would block the rescue. In case there's no commercial towing service available, the Coast Guard will not only dig the victim out of the sand, but will get her back into the water as well. In this case, she's cooperating with a commercial tug that lies waiting out at sea. Now a tractor hauls a Coast Guard surf boat over the sands to the beach. Before shoving off, the men don their life jackets. Regulations require Coast Guardsmen to wear these jackets at all times while engaged in small craft duty at sea. And they're off for the tug. This surf boat is carrying a small line out to the tug, with which the tug's hawser will be pulled to shore and attached to the yacht. And here she is, all set to do the strong arm stuff and pull the flashy lady off the sandy beach. A Coast Guardman throws one end of the small line aboard the tug, where it's secured to the towing hawser. As they pull away, the line is played out into the water, bringing the other end to the beach. And now heave-ho, and the men haul in their line until the tug's heavy hawser is dragged ashore. All that remains is to secure the hawser to the lady's nose and pull like old 60. But could you tie a little knot like this? You could not. Did I say knot? I meant knots, dozens of them, running in every direction. This gave these Coast Guardsmen a chance to display some of that knot-tying knowledge they picked up back at Old Fort Trumbull. Now all is secure. The signal is given to haul away, the tug begins to move, and our stranded lady swings around as surprised as you please. She was never meant to be dragged around like this, but it doesn't hurt a bit, and she heads straight for the water. And there she goes, back to where she came from, boldly but safely escorted to the bosom of the sea. Reaching deep water again, she shakes off the sand and sticks up her mast toward the blue sky, none the worse for the rescue. The Coast Guard is always on the lookout for trouble. A Coast Guardsman sights something in the water, rushes over to it, and discovers a half-drowned man floundering in the surf. Occasionally, unfortunate victims of shipwreck or of accident, such as falling from wharves and vessels, or of exhaustion while in bathing, reach the shore to all appearances dead. From the tower of the nearby station, a lookout sees the discovery. He rushes in to give the information to the officer in charge. An emergency squad is ordered out, and losing no time, they run to the scene, carrying all necessary equipment. The crew immediately begin their routine for restoring the apparently drowned, a method in which they are exceptionally skilled. The method used today differs from that originally used in that it affords a means of deeper inspiration than any other known method. The former method, which afforded the most complete expiration, has been combined with a new method, resulting in a treatment which produces the most complete oxygenation of the blood, which is the real object to be gained. Coast Guard station crews are thoroughly trained in these exercises and are called to many such emergencies every year. The rules for restoring the apparently drowned, as practiced by the Coast Guard, are believed to be the most efficacious means ever devised for that purpose. The officers and men of the Coast Guard are under instruction to use the service method to the exclusion of all others, including the use of mechanical devices. After a few minutes, the victim begins to breathe of his own accord and to show other signs of life. He'll be taken into the Coast Guard station, where he'll be further examined and given medical treatment. If he's suffering from exposure or other complications requiring medical attention, he'll be rushed by automobile or airplane to a hospital. Just another of the many humanitarian services the Coast Guard may be called upon to perform when people have anything to do with the many-mooded sea. At all Coast Guard stations, a fixed beat or patrol is laid out in each direction along the shore. And from sunset to sunrise, patrolmen walk these beats. Each patrolman carries a time detector, in which there is a dial that can be marked only by means of a key embedded in a post at the limit of the patrol. He also carries a number of red Coston flare signals, with which to warn a vessel standing too close inshore or to notify those in distress that he has gone to summon assistance. Each year, many vessels are saved from disaster on shoals and reefs by use of these signal flares. It's not all work and no play in the Coast Guard, but when it is play, it's the kind that builds brawn and the sense of responsibility bred by competition. Here, the crews from neighboring stations are preparing for a series of races that will prove their skill and keep them fit. This will be a race of small surf boats pulled by oars, a form of crew race the colleges do not know. They're off. Backs bend and muscles strain to get the boats underway. Easy? Well, just try it sometime. The boats gain momentum and are off in earnest, with the coxswain singing in the stern and the men throwing every ounce of energy into the oars. The race is reminiscent of a college contest, except that to these men rowing surf boats is a business, the business of saving human life. Pull away, me hearties. You're in the lead, and the prize is yours for the asking. A few yards more, and there you are, over the line. Here comes a boat that worked hard for a winning place. How do you feel, boys? Well, maybe we shouldn't have mentioned it. No form of exercise is harder than rowing a heavy boat. It takes what you've got, and sometimes what you haven't. And here's a race to test your zeal, your skill, and your sense of humor. This is an upset race. That is, the men wearing life jackets row the boat to a certain point, tip her over, right her again, and then row away for the goal. There goes the first. Over the side they go, upsetting the boat, and showing her keel to the sky. No matter who wins, it's still an upset. And here's another. Watch the boy in the stern. He's going to get out and back in practically no time at all and without ever really leaving the boat. See, what did I tell you? He certainly held down his side of the bargain. Looks as easy as falling off a log, but try it yourself sometime. And they're off again, just a short way from the goal. Oh boy, what a fun fest. Fancy yourself in a life jacket soaked to the skin, having to pull a heavy boat in a race. And there's the winner. Oars point to the skies as a signal of victory. Just a sample of the way the Coast Guard boys play. And in playing, keep always fit as a fiddle and ready for trouble. The Coast Guard station men are put through vigorous drills. Here they are preparing for the picturesque beach apparatus drill. Working fast, for these affairs are timed accurately, they haul out the apparatus to the drill ground, place the Lyle gun in position, and the box containing the shot line. In this box, the shot line is arranged intricately to allow for speedy play. They attach the shot line to the eye bolt of the 17-pound projectile loaded in the Lyle gun and shoot it out to the mast of an imaginary stranded vessel. The weight and inertia of the line causes the projectile to reverse and fly with the line out to the imaginary wreck. Thus, contact with shore is established. A whip block and whip line are attached to the shot line, and with the block goes a tally board telling explicitly what is to be done. This block will be secured to the mast, both ends of its line remaining ashore to be used later in hauling a hawser and breeches buoy aboard. The directions on the tally board are printed in both English and French. Using the shot line, the crew on the imaginary vessel hauls the whip line and its block aboard and secures the block to the mast. Now the Coast Guardsmen can handle all lines themselves. They prepare the whip line to be used in hauling the large hawser to the mast. Now they secure the hawser to the whip line, ready to haul her aboard. There she goes. In a few minutes, all will be ready for the breeches buoy. The men are trained to work fast, for often a vessel strands in a dangerous position offshore, and her crew and passengers must be taken off in a hurry. This hawser will be attached to the mast and will form a trolley down which the breeches buoy is to slide. The breeches buoy is snapped onto the hawser and will be pulled out to the mast by means of the whip line. A crotch is raised under the hawser to take up slack and to lift the line as high as possible above the surf. And now she's off in earnest. This little apparatus called the breeches buoy will speedily take men off the imaginary vessel one by one. And here's how it's done. Whee! Simple, isn't it? Sort of like a game. But when the sea has crashed your ship against the rocks and is battering her pieces beneath your feet, it's a game you love to play. Thousands have been rescued from stranded vessels in just this manner, sliding away from an angry sea to safety on shore. And now to salvage as much as possible of the Coast Guard gear that has been secured to the stranded vessel. Here's how they retrieve the hawser. This gadget is a special sort of a knife, which is clamped on the hawser and pulled out almost to its fastenings on the vessel. When it has reached its limit, a slight tug at the line, and snap, down she comes. And there's a saving for you. Hawsers are expensive and not to be thrown away. Thus ends the ever-important beach apparatus drill. Here are scenes of an actual rescue by the beach apparatus of a Coast Guard station crew. A storm has tossed the steam freighter Lyman Stewart upon the rocks at the entrance to Golden Gate, San Francisco. The huge cut in her bow is evidence enough of how important it was to land her crew in a hurry. Here's one of them now being brought ashore in a Coast Guard breeches buoy. The entire crew of the Lyman Stewart was saved in this manner by the Coast Guard, all brought ashore safely in the breeches buoy apparatus. The Lyman Stewart was a total loss, and so might a number of lives have been without the prompt work of the ever-ready Coast Guard. And here's another ship on the rocks near San Francisco, and another actual rescue by the Coast Guard. 34 men were saved by the quick work of the Coast Guard when this vessel went on the rocks in shallow water during a storm on the coast. This rock tells the story. Half of the crew are saved by Coast Guard power lifeboats, while the other half will be taken ashore in the breech's buoy. The Lyle gun is made ready. It shoots the shot line out to the vessel, and the breech's buoy apparatus is set up. One by one, the crew are taken off the wrecked vessel. It's a dangerous, frightening experience even for these hardy, seasoned sailors, and they can thank their lucky stars that the Coast Guard was on hand with its ever-ready equipment. Rigging up the breech's buoy apparatus at this treacherous point was difficult and dangerous work, but trained hands had it ready and working in a short time. And thus another dramatic triumph is chalked up for the Coast Guard over the cruel tyranny of the merciless sea. In conclusion, it is significant to point out that the cost of personnel, maintenance, and operation of the entire Coast Guard, its 300-odd vessels and small boats which patrol the waters off our coast, its limited air service, and the 277 stations guarding the 10,000 miles of coastline, all this amounts to a sum less than one-half of the budget of the police force of one of our largest cities. Roughly averaged, the Coast Guard each year has examined the papers of 31,800 vessels, has examined 6,000 merchant seamen for certificates as lifeboatmen, has patrolled 204 marine regattas, has seized or reported for violations of the law 1,400 vessels, resulting in fines and penalties to the amount of $94,500, has cared for 1,300 persons in distress, has assisted 34,800 people aboard vessels, has saved from death or rescued from peril 5,600 persons, has assisted or saved from the sea property amounting to $47,500,000. Cold statistics do not, however, reflect the true story back of the Coast Guard, a story of enduring courage and heroism, of tragedy and pathos, of self-sacrifice, brawn and brain, and of unexcelled skill and daring, the thrilling and admirable saga of the United States Coast Guard.